Today, June 19, 2021, marks the first time in history that Juneteenth is recognized as a federal holiday. For those of you who don't know, Juneteenth marks the anniversary, essentially, of the end of slavery, when the last holdouts of the Confederacy of the United States were informed, in no uncertain terms, that former slaves were now free and were to be treated as equals. This should have been the end of the story, shouldn't it? This should have been the moment where everyone said, that's it. That's the end of the story. Everyone is now free. But of course, history tells a much different story. Even though the laws changed, the hearts did not. And those who once had power and wealth on the back of forced labor still craved power. Fast forward 155 years later, and not only is there still an attempt to suppress those who are not like the majority, we still haven't even fully addressed the issue of forced labor. For it was only in this year that the G7 signed a resolution saying that all of its member nations would eliminate forced labor from its supply chains. That means 155 years after the United States said that slavery was over, we're still dealing with it. In terms of organizational psychology, this illustrates an important point. Whatever the stated law or rule of a society is, the important thing is the culture in which that law is interpreted. Even though the law said that all men were now free, the culture had not changed, and still would not 155 years later. Even though most people would say that forced labor is an evil and a scourge that should never be tolerated in any situation, when money starts coming into the matter, when power starts getting into the matter, when it becomes other people that we don't care about, suddenly it changes. And so I would say that this Juneteenth, while we should celebrate what was known as the Day of Jubilee, a day truly momentous that marked an end of a dark chapter in American history, we still must recognize that the work isn't over, and that especially those with power, with privilege, with resources, those who are in the majority, those who have a voice, have not just a ability, but a responsibility, an obligation to address these issues. Because if those in power decide not to do something, that will inevitably follow. Whereas if those in power tolerate such things, then it will indeed be tolerated no matter what the law may be. So this Juneteenth, let's mark a moment to truly celebrate and to truly enjoy the milestone that was earned with toil and sweat and blood. But let's also look to the future and think of what it would look like if not just by law all men were free, all women were free, but if in reality all people everywhere were truly free. I think that's a goal worth fighting for, and I hope that you'll join me in this fight. Thank you, and happy Juneteenth.